All right, Sarah, welcome back to the podcast. We are currently located in Puerto Vallarta in our new apartment here. We just moved in, like a week ago or something like that. And what we wanted to do is just kind of sit down and record this episode and talk about why we really like it here in Puerto Vallarta and why personally I think this could be a really good digital nomad location and kind of get your thoughts on it. So why did we first, let people know, why did we decide to come back here to Puerto Vallarta instead of going somewhere else in Mexico? Obviously, we spent a lot of time in Merida. Like, what was kind of like our thought process around coming back here, and like, why are you personally excited about being here?
So we've been getting in the habit the last few years of coming to Mexico in general for January and February. We branded it Jan-Feb. That was the original plan. So that just means January and February, this period of time that it was really cold back in Ohio, back in the States. And so we've been coming back to Mexico, but we've been going to Merida, Mexico, which is capital of the Yucatan. We absolutely love it. Met some great people there. And last year when we were doing Jan-Feb in Merida, I think Nathan invited us over to Puerto Vallarta. Our friend Nathan Foodie Flashpacker had planned on being here for, I think, April and May. And we just decided to tag along for about 5 weeks. So that was back in April of this year in 2021. And we really fell in love with it. And
what exactly made you fall in love with this place? Not necessarily as opposed to Merida, but like, what was the thing that you fell in love with here that kind of made us want to come back here?
I have been describing it as there's these staples, like there's a really good gym, there's good healthy food options, there's a good co-working space, a lot of variety in the food. There's these staples that make for a really good routine. And that is something that we've been craving. And it's, I think, a big struggle. A lot of digital nomads is finding that routine. And so we had just been craving it. And in April, we fell into a routine even in 5 weeks. We fell into it pretty quickly. And that was my biggest draw for coming back here. That was something I was really looking forward to, is having good food options and a really good gym that's really inexpensive and good co-working space. So that was the big draw for me.
Yeah, and I also think like this is one of the things that we talked about as well when we were trying to decide coming here or not. We both really like Merida. We really like the people there. We enjoyed the community there. We liked the city a lot as well. But the only problem was like, it gets really, really hot in the Yucatan.
So hot.
And the other thing is that it's very, very flat. And that's something that I noticed myself staying there for a long period of time, was like that I kind of wanted visually something else. Like I wanted some kind of like here there's like the ocean that we're looking at right now. And then also right behind the ocean, there are mountains as well.
And high buildings.
And high buildings. Didn't have in Merida, yeah, and like Merida, there was like, I think like regularly speaking, like the average building was like 2 stories.
Yeah.
In terms of height,
you know what I
mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, now here it kind of gives it has more of this like visual diversity, if that makes sense, that I like a lot.
For sure. And yeah, people go crazy for just ocean views, and that's one thing where it's just a flat line of water. I don't really get excited. I'm like, okay, there's water there, but I really like the mountains in the back, and there's so many different levels of everything, and it's so cool to be walking on the street and there's just a giant mountain behind it. And being from Cincinnati, Detroit area, it's like, it's pretty flat. I mean, compared to this, it's pretty flat. Right. So it's nice to just get that real change of pace, and really green too here.
It is very green. Yeah. I also think like, even though it's still warm, like I think this is the thing, is like, it's not California, right? So it's not going to be like, it doesn't get cold at night. Like it doesn't get cool at night like it does in like some parts of California. But even though it's still like low to mid 80s every day, even like it was funny, even when we were coming here, it was going to be like raining every single day. And I think it rained like for 5 minutes, like one day, you know what I mean? Just kind of like the weather's just constantly the same.
Here. There was,
oh, really?
But that was weird, which I love the rain. I love like gray skies and cloudy and rain. But the first week, the one where you weren't here, there was rain almost every day, but it was for like a period of time.
It wasn't like constant.
Yeah, which is cool. I like that. I like a little bit of, variety in the weather. So that was really cool. But.
Yeah. So like, even though it's kind of like still hot here, it's still in the 80s. There's like a nice ocean breeze. For some reason it doesn't feel as hot as like a Merida did, while like Merida was like high 80s, low 90s most of the time, and but it also felt like very sweltering
The
hot.
one thing that makes it feel a little bit hotter here, though, is there's just, especially in Zona Romantica, I'm not sure about, we haven't really spent a ton of time outside of here, stairs everywhere, like inclines, hills, stairs, which is great because one of our goals for coming here is getting getting more fit and healthy and everything. So I think that's been contributing to that a lot. But it does make it feel hotter sometimes if you're like climbing we have this like huge, really steep thing of stairs right to like.
Not as bad as last year.
No, it's like the last sprint to get home. And we're always just like, okay, push through it. But that definitely contributes a little bit to feeling hot, but.
Yeah, I think the other reason why I really like Puerto Vallarta, and this is something that I've even mentioned on like social media and like when people ask me, is that PV it's a big city, so it has all the amenities of a big city, right? We have a Costco, we have like 2 Walmarts, we have a big movie theater, big airport that's like well connected. Yet because the city is kind of like spread out along the coast, it feels small in your own little part of it. So it's not like this like city where like all around you it's city, right? Like realistically speaking, where we're here in Zona Romantica, the town starts like 5 minutes down the road by the water and then ends like 5 minutes up the street from us, right? It's like very long and skinny. It's not like a kind of like a big fat city. So I really enjoy that because even though it's a big city, it has, not like a huge population, right? Like I just came from Mexico City where it's like 20 million people, but it's like a decent sized city, but it feels very small in its own way and in the other parts of it.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's been cool. Yeah, I like it.
So one of the things that I've been saying is that I really do think that this could be another digital nomad location because I think Mexico is going to pop. It's been becoming more and more popular ever since COVID. Way more people are trying to come down here to Mexico because they're working with like US companies or clients or whatever. And right now, I would say Playa del Carmen is like kind of like the big hotspot. I don't know if you'd agree with me on that one. So I'm kind of curious to hear, what do you think comparing it to some of the other digital nomad locations like a Playa del Carmen? Like, how do you compare the two, and like why do you personally like it here more than PDC, for example?
I feel like here it feels a lot more local to me, and maybe that's I don't know if that's correct, but it feels like there's a lot more like local people around, and there's like these farmers markets they're not just made for expats, to make them happy. They're actually like great farmers markets to go to. So I really like that aspect of it. And like I said before, one of the biggest things is I think it's so set up to get into a living routine. It's a big tourist destination, but it's not set up to necessarily be that.
There's like an economy past tourism.
It's so funny because like Zona Romantica is set up. It's a touristy part of town. Like there are a lot of these bars that are catering to tourists and restaurants and everything. So it is, but at the same time, there's so many things that allow it to just be an everyday livable city that like allows you to get into a routine, which I love.
I almost also wonder, like, do you think there's a difference between Playa del Carmen and Puerto Vallarta? Because I think personally, I'm wondering if Playa del Carmen is more touristy, whereas Puerto Vallarta is more expat-y. Like, I feel like there's a lot more people that you meet here who are like Americans or Canadians, who aren't necessarily tourists. They're like expats.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Playa del Carmen to me feels more short-term, like a short-term visit than here. That's why I'm saying it feels more like set up to live here long-term rather than more so than Playa del Carmen for sure. Yeah,
because like, for example, like a lot of like the buildings around us, they're kind of set up to be, maybe you're not living there long. They're definitely catered towards like foreigners, but they're not necessarily set up as like hotels. There's a lot of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like,
Timeshares.
Yeah, right. Like, I mean, like the building down the street from us, they have a bar where, like, in order for you the pool, in order for you to use the pool, you need to be staying there, or you must be like renting from an owner.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another thing contributing to that too is the lodging.
Yeah, like the rental prices.
Lodging, rental prices, apartment prices, everything is so much more expensive here than in Playa del Carmen. And sure, you can find things for less money, but it's very expensive here compared to Playa del Carmen.
How much, you're kind of like the Airbnb expert, like how much obviously this doesn't have to be like super exact numbers, but how much more expensive would you say would it be here in Puerto Vallarta as compared to like a Playa del Carmen?
Do not hold me to this, but I would argue at least double.
Really?
Yeah. I think, and this also just depends on what, like for our standards of an apartment that we're looking for, I would maybe not double. I would say
because, for example,
50% more expensive. It's so hard because the place we're in now is you can't compare this place to Airbnb prices. So We're paying $1,200 a month for this place. It's modern, it's updated, it's great view, everything. But this place on Airbnb would probably be $3,000 a month. And that's just for like short-term rental prices, not necessarily factoring the Airbnb costs in and everything. But I would say, speaking in Airbnb terms, double.
Yeah, I think, and obviously like, this is like one of the other things is like, I think Puerto Vallarta might have, like, obviously the prices here in Zona Romantica are different than like the hotel zone, which are different than like another neighborhood, which is a bit more like local. Yes. So like, I think while yes, this part of PV might be more expensive, I think that there's more to choose from. So Absolutely. Even if you're in like a lower budget, like I said, like not like $1,200, such a super high budget. And maybe that's something that you can take away is like, hey, come here and stay at an Airbnb for a month or two and kind of like meet like off Airbnb, places so that you can get like a better rate for a longer term. But I think that there might be more places available with more at like a different cost if you're willing to not stay in like a very specific spot.
For sure. So you just have to have that flexibility. But even in, down the road in a different neighborhood right next to us, it's a little bit more or a little bit less expensive, but it's still like $2,000-$3,000 a month, which is really expensive for a digital nomad hotspot, like a place where digital nomads come. Like traditionally, that's really, really expensive. So yeah, I think that's a great option, is just to get here for a week or a couple days even and like find something to rent here. So scope it out.
Beyond costs, what do you think are some of the negatives or maybe things that like are missing from PV to become a more popular digital nomad location? Because like, for example, like to give you time to think, like, yes, there's a co-working space here in town, and everybody there is super nice. It's a really cool location, actually. Like, I think it has like a spot. It's really cool, but I think it lacks a little bit of that community. Like I said, there's a lot of expats here, so there's like a very big expat community. Any bar or restaurant you go to, you're going to bump into an expat. There's a few local, like physical businesses that are run by expats even, but I don't feel like a sense of like nomad community.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely feel that. And I think one thing that, being in any touristy destination that we didn't really get as much in Merida, it's not as much of that's more of a, expat place, as we've talked about before. There are still a lot of tourists here, especially in the area that we're staying in. So going anywhere, walking anywhere, I have blonde hair. I'm clearly not from here. I can clearly be pointed out as a tourist or an expat. And people don't know I don't live here, obviously. So I get very awkward when people are constantly trying to, sell something to me or get them to eat at their restaurant. And, shout out to these people who are just obviously trying to make a living and, going about their sales techniques. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think it can get a little bit awkward for me just because I always smile and say no thank you and make eye contact, and I really make a point to do that just because I also hate when people just brush people off and, you know, walk by and be rude. So I think that can get a little bit awkward for me, but that's just like a me thing.
I don't think it's a you thing. I think
maybe not.
Like,
I don't know.
Like, I mean, even with like, I definitely agree with you that I like personally, like you're way nicer than I am. And I'm not mean, but I'm definitely more Eastern European in this sense. Like when people try to come up and like sell things to me on the beach or on the street, I'm just kind of like walk by. And I do think that it kind of gets a little bit like annoying after a while of like, you know, every time I walk to the co-working space, the same 3 people from the same 3 restaurants try to like sell me, you know, like a bucket of beers at like 10 a.m. or whatever. And like that can get a little bit frustrating. But this is where I'll say, like, it still is less than, like, what you'd get in, like, Playa del Carmen. Like, Playa del Carmen, it's like you can't walk 3 steps down the main alleyway without getting, like...
For sure.
Like, sugar for your booger questions, you know,
but
like, left and right.
But that being said, too, we just talked about this 2 days ago. Everyone is so friendly here. Yeah. So, like, that goes hand in hand with, like, I know people are, you know, selling, but they're so... nice, and they're so, you know, and even people that aren't selling anything, you know, just walking down the street, whether it be locals or expats or whoever, everyone's just says good morning and hi, and they're like with a giant smile. Like I feel like everyone is just in such a light mood here, which is really refreshing. I love Bulgaria.
Coming from Eastern Europe.
I love Bulgaria so much. I mean, if you've ever talked to me, you know I love Bulgaria, but it can get a little bit like cold there, which is just, you know, and that there are they have their own reasons for that, valid, whatever. But it's really refreshing to come here because I am like, you know, Miss Midwestern, says hi to everyone I pass, and, you know, I want to hug everybody and whatever. So it's really refreshing. Like, so I think that, you know, the sales techniques and everything does go hand in hand with that, which I also appreciate. So it's kind of, you know, yeah.
What do you think about, like, why do you like, because there's a lot of these towns along the Pacific coast that have potential, right? There's Sayulita, like right up, like an hour away from here. There's Puerto Escondido, and there's like a bunch of places in between. But what do you think, like, let's specifically talk about Sayulita, because I think that is a very common place that is like mentioned kind of like hand in hand with PV. Like, why do you personally like, or why did we, and like, let's talk a little bit about this together. Like, why did we decide to come here as opposed to going to like Sayulita? So
Sayulita is about, we had a debate about this the other day, 55 minutes, an hour away from, an hour up the coast from Puerto Vallarta. And I initially described it as a sleepy little beach town and was like hit with 6 messages being like, it's not sleepy, it's a party town, whatever. And I was like, okay. And after we got there, I was like, oh, this is why. And so we spent some time there in April and really fell in love with it. Really beautiful town with a great community, and we actually looked at living there for a little bit. Yeah. But the Wi-Fi was one of the biggest issues. It's fine. It works. It's like you can do it, but you know, we both work with a lot of video and a lot of content uploading, and it just we would have been pulling our hair out every single day. So that was one of the biggest issues. Second, I think, like you said, we enjoy the amenities of living in a big city. We like Costco, okay? Like, we go to Costco sometimes. We don't go a lot, but like there are things there that we like to buy. The pizza's really good.
The pizza is really good.
It's like stupid good. And
I said that to someone the other day that like Costco pizza is really good, and they looked at me like, what? And I was like, yeah, like Costco pizza is awesome.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we don't fly out of airports a lot. We kind of are, you know, sticking to our home base here in PV a little bit. But just having that there is really, those big things there is really great. And I think those were... you know, when looking at Sayulita and PV, I think our goal of coming here, as I've said, now this is like the 3rd time I mentioned this, but our goal was to get in a routine. Mm-hmm. And we have that here. We have like 4 or 5 healthy food options that we can switch out, you know, for lunch every day of the week. We have that are like reliable, cheap, good things. We have an amazing gym that we're paying $32 a month for that has, incredible classes. And so I know I've just beaten this point to the whatever. I don't know how you say that. Like I think that is just like what you're really craving. And I think that is why, but that and the Wi-Fi for sure.
I also think like the prices and the availability of places to stay that were comfortable were a bit more difficult to find. Even more so than here. I feel like Sayulita was even more difficult to find.
It's not there. You can find it there, but A, you're probably going to be paying more for it. And B, it just doesn't fit the place. It's like this surf town, this kind of party surf town, and it just doesn't really fit that. We wanted this giant, island that we could cook on, and it just wasn't the place for us. Which is not to say we won't visit it a ton this year and get some more surfing lessons in, but
I also think like if you are somebody who's like, no, I want to go to Sayulita, like first of all, yes, it's a party town. Like, yeah, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights can get a little like wild there, but I didn't find it hard to get out of that at all if you didn't want to. Like we stayed in an Airbnb that was like maybe 3 or 4 minutes away from the center, and there was like
quiet.
It was super quiet, super chill.
I don't mean to make it sound like a party town. If you want a party, you can find it there, but it's not like you go there and it's like, if you don't like partying, you can go there and have like a sleepy surfer beach experience. We had that when we went that weekend. We don't rage or party. Like we're not those, like we can enjoy it, but like that's not us. And we had a really relaxing weekend. So I don't mean to make it sound like it's this like.
Right. No, I was just kind of saying like the other thing as well, though, as like a positive for Sayulita is I think Sayulita has attracted more attention in this topic in terms of like digital nomadism. And because of that, like they have a Selena, right?
Yeah.
And even though in my opinion, the Selena there, like I didn't get to test it. So it's not my opinion. I didn't get to test it myself. However, I heard from people that like the co-working space itself, like wasn't actually that big there. It was far more of like a place to stay. And that the Wi-Fi wasn't that great. It's still there. Like having that as a resource in a city or in a town says something. And for example, like I just talked about this in the most recent Nomad Insider newsletter, but Selena just made a deal with Volcom where they're going to be doing these surf co-work locations, and Sayulita is one of them. So this sort of like focus, this sort of like resource does add something to it. There's also another co-working space there that like we went to that we liked quite a bit. That was kind of nice.
Indoor, outdoor. Yeah. I have to look up the name of
it. And even though it's a smaller town, like I still think in terms of like food, they actually had quite a bit of different things.
Some of the best Thai food we've had. The Thai place was phenomenal.
Good
really
bars,
great, like bowls, like healthy bowls and smoothie bowls, and really good food options for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. We had a lot of good. So we had some good ramen.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing as well is like we were saying, from where we are right now in Puerto Vallarta, which is sort of like the southernmost tip of Puerto Vallarta, we're, let's say, an hour away from Sayulita.
55 minutes, I confirm.
And so Sarah was saying that we're 45 minutes away. I was saying that was an hour, so that's why she's saying 55 minutes, because she does not want to admit it's an hour.
It is. It's literally 55 minutes.
But anyways, what I was going to say was that even though we're the southernmost tip of Puerto Vallarta right now, the airport is further up to like further north. So it's, even if you are staying in Sayulita, and even if you do want to have access to a Costco, have access to the airport, have access to, a big cinema, let's say it's like 45 minutes away from you, 40 minutes. Yeah. So it's not like insane, right? Like
it's accessible,
People drive that to work every day in the States.
Yeah.
So it's not crazy. The issue is you need a car.
Yeah.
So it would get like expensive if like every weekend you took an Uber to Costco.
It wouldn't be probably wouldn't be an every weekend thing. Right. Probably be like a once a month Costco haul.
Right. What are you kind of like looking forward to the most? I know that you've said the routine. Obviously,
I think everybody knows that I'm excited for the routine so far. We're hyped for the routine.
What are you really looking forward to? This is kind of the first time that we've come to Mexico this early. It's currently November, so we're staying here all the way through to the end of April. So what are kind of like one or two or three things that you're looking forward to over this next 6 months, not including the routine?
Took my first one, didn't you? I think one thing that I'm really looking forward to that I've been dragging Mitko into this conversation all day is this is our first Thanksgiving in a different country. This is our first ever time that we're doing Thanksgiving in a new country outside of the U.S. And I thought that would make me really sad. I'm very attached to my holidays and my, traditions and all of that. But we have like 20 people coming to our apartment for Thanksgiving. We're going to like cram 20 people in here. And I'm really excited for that. And I've been talking with Nathan, one of our great friends, about planning this. So I'm really excited to be surrounded by just friends and like people that I love, and really looking forward to that for sure. So that's a good one. And also in saying that, it's like we're staying here until December 20th. And so it's like I count like the entire month of December and probably most of November as like Christmas time, like
We already have Christmas lights up.
yeah, they're weak, but like, okay. Yeah. So like I count like this whole time as Christmas time. And I've always said that I want to be home in the States with our families for November and December. Like I want to, that was always a pretty sure thing for me. And we're going to be spending Christmas time in the heat in Puerto Vallarta. And it's going to be really cool to see. I always thought we'd be in, Ireland or Prague or, somewhere that's cold and Christmassy, like tradition, in my mind, like this, I equate cold and Christmas together, but it'll be really cool to see how PV does Christmas up until then. So I'm really excited to see that. I am looking forward to hopefully overcoming my fear of the ocean. I'm going to work on that for the next 6 months, not digital nomad related, but very excited to hopefully come to peace with the sea creatures over the next 6 months. Mitko's going to have to train me a little bit. So that's one more thing I'm looking forward to. And another one is just making more connections here in PV. We're here for a long time. And, you said we're in some ways lacking a digital nomad community outside of our circle. We're kind of lacking that. And I think that is, part of what we can do is what can we do to make that happen and, find new people to talk to. And that's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah, personally, I'm really excited. This is like kind of like a touristy one, but we know that like November through February or November through March is like the whale season. So I'm really excited to hopefully see some whales. I've never seen a whale in real life. I don't even think I've seen a whale in captive before.
I've seen one at no, we did. We saw one at, when we went to Chicago at the aquarium.
Yeah. Okay.
Remember we saw that we snuck into the,
it's okay. You can. I don't think anybody from the Chicago
It was like
aquarium
2017. We went somewhere we weren't supposed to, and we were like in a whale exhibit all of a sudden.
But yeah, I'm very excited about that. I think that's going to be really cool. I'm really excited to get a little bit more surfing done, and maybe like PV itself isn't really great for surfing for whatever reason. I haven't really been able to figure it out. Even though like an hour up the road, Sayulita is great for surfing. So I don't really know what changes that. But I am excited either way to kind of take some day trips up to there, some weekend trips to do some surfing. I'm also really excited along that line to like visit some more places here in Mexico and use this as an actual home base. So like I would love to go and see some of these like little towns down, south from here. We've already talked about maybe popping over to some other bigger cities like Guanajuato, like Querétaro, after Christmas, since we're going to be pretty busy up until then. But actually having a home base here in Mexico that we can use to then go see some of these other places, because like this is going to sound so silly, but before coming to Mexico for the first time, I didn't realize how big Mexico was. Like I just
huge.
Like you don't realize how much. I think like we as Americans just think of Mexico as like the Yucatan, and you kind of don't, or there's a lot more of it, but you kind of assume it's far more homogeneous through it, and it's really not. Like there's a lot of difference. There's a lot of like all of these different parts of the country are very, very different.
And that's why, like, I remember, during COVID, we kept getting these questions like, how is Mexico handling COVID? And it was like, it has just been completely different across the board. And like any questions of it, like, is Mexico safe? And it's so hard to, it's like talking about the U.S. in general. Like, it's really hard to generalize it as a whole, just the whole country. So, but that's so cool. Like, it's been so cool and I haven't been to Mexico City yet. You've explored that recently, and I'm pumped to,
Yeah, like, I think
visit.
it's also a good idea kind of before we wrap up to touch on the safety aspect, because I know that's like a really big deal. Everybody always asks us if we feel safe in Mexico, like, what is the safety like? And on top of that, there have been some, stories in the news recently about, unfortunately, there was a shooting in Playa del Carmen where some tourists were killed, which is very, very sad. So I do want to touch a little bit on the safety and just in general, like, how do you feel as a, woman? Obviously, like, it's very different to be traveling as a guy than it is as a girl. So how do you feel in terms of like safety, generally in Mexico, but then also like specifically here in Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah, I honestly haven't really felt, I think the times where I don't feel safe, it's when I don't know an area or not like familiar with it, or I'm, when we first got to Mexico and it's just all these like stories like rattling through my head about, horror stories left and right. But I treat Mexico in regards to safety, in regards to walking around by myself and all of that, I treat it as I would in, downtown Detroit, where I'm from outside of Detroit, but we're pretty close, so we visit a lot. I don't walk anywhere alone at night where there's not like a ton of people around. I'm very, very, very aware at all times. But I'm also like that in Cincinnati. Like, it's not just like Detroit and Mexico and like Chicago or like, I'm a very aware person, which you just are trained to be as a woman. We've had these conversations all the time, and it's I think just being really, really aware of where you are, but not letting that get in the way of me living my daily life here. I obviously like walk everywhere by myself during the day, and I think part of it goes into, we stay in almost the middle of where we're like living and going everywhere every day, and we're not super far outside the city where I have to walk by myself and whatever. So I think it's just being really aware of that, which is just differs between men and women so much. Like,
Yeah, and I think like even beyond like the male female aspect to safety, like Mexico, like we said, is a very big country.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the issues that we hear about in terms of safety with Mexico are not like throughout the country. They're concentrated in certain parts of the country. It's certain states. Sometimes it's certain like parts of a city. Like, for example, like Mexico City, like, and I've talked about this just because like, I don't know, it really bothers me when people make these blanket statements that a place is unsafe. Maybe it's because like I'm from Eastern Europe, and I think a lot of like Americans or a lot of like the West looks at Eastern Europe as this place that's like dangerous, and it's like really not. Like, you walk around Varna like alone all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, for me, yeah, like perfect example is Mexico City, right? Like Mexico City has a population of over 20 million people. Obviously, some of those characters aren't going to be very cool, right? But it's a city of 20 million people. There's neighborhoods that are perfectly safe for you to walk around in and to like walk around at night and to be alone and whatnot. And then there's certain parts of the city where you shouldn't go, right?
Yep.
And you can read about all of that online. So I feel very much that, like, to me, in Puerto Vallarta, I have had like zero moments that have ever felt unsafe to me. And yes, this is me coming as a guy, but also like going further than Puerto Vallarta, like Merida is the second safest city in North America after Montreal. At least that was last year when we came here. I haven't looked to see if that standing is still there, but I don't think, and this is from personal experience, like, obviously you should research wherever you're going, make sure that you're staying in safe areas, but I don't think that you need to be more worried about Mexico just in general than you would be anywhere else. Like, are there certain parts that you absolutely need to be more, aware of, or maybe even like skip and not go to? 100%. But just do your research. And I think like here in PV, I feel very safe.
Yeah, it was interesting this year that we came here a couple weeks ago. You weren't here for the first few days that I was here, and you weren't supposed to be here I was supposed to be alone for a week here. And that was really interesting, just being here by myself. Cause like, I feel, this like wing of protection whenever even Mitko's in the same city as me. It's like, I feel, at peace, and I feel, and so this was a good kind of test for my mental state when you weren't here. And I felt really good. Like, I felt like fine. I wasn't doing anything stupid, and I was, again, being really aware, and you tracked my Ubers everywhere I went. And, but yeah, I really feel great here. I feel at home here, and I'm really, really excited for the next few months ahead.
Yeah. Essentially, like, we're going to be here, until the end of April. Maybe after that, we have not decided what to do after that. Maybe we'll stay a little bit longer in Mexico, just in another city. Maybe we'll go back to the US. Maybe we'll go directly to Europe. Like, we kind of don't really know what we're going to do, but,
and that's the way we like it.
Yeah, and like, we really like it here. This is actually the second longest we've ever stayed in a place, with the longest being Cincinnati during COVID. But we really like it here. It's super comfortable in a good way. Yeah. Like, that we can, really focus, get work done.
Focus on a routine.
Yeah, we're both very excited to have a gym down the street that we can go to have like a kitchen that we can like really kind of cook. Some of us more excited about cooking at home than others. But yeah, we just wanted to kind of like sit down, and since we just got here, this is like the beginning of our second week here in Puerto Vallarta, or at least like my second week. We wanted to like, sit down, kind of talk it through and explain why we've decided to come to Puerto Vallarta, because so many people are going to Mexico right now and are wondering like, where should we go? Everybody or a lot of people talk about Playa del Carmen. They talk about Tulum. They talk about Mexico City. And I like all of those places. Well, I like Playa del Carmen, Mexico City. Tulum is not exactly my favorite place in the world, but
it's beautiful though.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Okay, we'll get into that
later. It's like one of these things where I always tell people, like, guys, I wouldn't spend more than 3 days there at once. But this is why we like Puerto Vallarta. And this is why we've decided to come here. So if you are interested in coming to Puerto Vallarta, definitely let us know. You can find me at Mitkoka, Mitkoka on Instagram. And Sarah is at Life of Sarah Jane. Well,
Did you not know that?
I knew that. I just wanted to let you say it.
Okay. Yeah. At Life of Sarah Jane.
That's right.
Testing you.
And of course, if you did enjoy this, if you're listening to this, please subscribe, leave us a review. Those reviews seriously help so much. And if you're watching this on YouTube, also subscribe. My goal is to get to 1,000 subs by the end of the year.
I'm just going to create like however many you need. I'm going to create a profile for each one, and then just
perfect.
Just kidding, I'm not going to do that.
But all right, you guys, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, feel free to send them over to me on social media. Feel free to post them in the comments on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, I reply to every comment unless it's obviously a spam comment in YouTube. So yeah, it's been a pleasure, and maybe this is something that we can do in 6 months before we leave, kind of doing like an in-review episode.
Yeah.
So
if you want to see me back, let Mitko know.
Yeah, if you wanna have Sarah more on the podcast, let us know. But
for my wonderful sense of humor and shining personality.
That's right. All right, you guys, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you are interested in learning more about the digital nomad economy and how to build a sustainable location-independent business, then here are 3 quick things that you can do. Number 1, make sure that you subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. I publish new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering a wide variety of topics, from interviews with location-independent entrepreneurs and thought leaders to city guides and much, much more. Number 2, make sure that you follow me on Instagram at Mitkoka. That's Mitkoka. That is the social media network that I'm the most active on, and you can see a lot more from behind the scenes of what I'm doing day to day in the places that I'm visiting. And finally, number 3, if you are interested in becoming a digital nomad yourself and you want to see what it's actually like to live this lifestyle long term, then check out my 4-part digital nomad crash course at thatremotelife.com/crash course. Over the course of this video, I'm going to show you the zero BS view of what it's like to actually be a digital nomad living long-term on the road. I will show you how to manage your personal finances while traveling the world and how to start your very own online business and increase your chances of building that successfully and profitably. So don't miss that out. You can find it at thatremotelife.com/crash course.